Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
Help me! The voice came from darkness, from below, from nowhere. Kalendor's eyes snapped open. The wind didn't howl, it screamed. It tore across the white planet's surface like a living thing trying to claw its way inside every crack, every crevice, every broken seal in the observation outpost's collapsed hull. He sat among the bodies, 7 of them, frozen in positions that suggested they'd been reaching for something when the cold took them. Frost crystallized on their open eyes. He'd stopped looking at their faces 3 days ago. The metal groaned. Wind, he told himself, just wind echoing through the structure's broken ribs. The outpost had been state-of-the-art once, before the ice shelf shifted, before the support beams buckled, before everyone he'd served with became statues in a tomb of steel and snow. His breath came in short, visible bursts. The emergency heater had died yesterday. His fingers were numb inside his gloves. He'd already stripped the thermal layers from 2 of the bodies. Survival wasn't pretty. It was just staying warm long enough to freeze tomorrow instead of today. Then he heard it again. Not wind, not the groan of settling metal. A voice, soft, barely there, but unmistakably not human, and definitely not wind. Help me! Callan's hand went to the plasma cutter at his belt. His pulse hammered in his throat. Hallucinations were common in extreme cold. Hypoxia, exhaustion, the brain's desperate attempt to find meaning in nothing. He'd been trained for this. Count your breaths. Check your fingers. Stay rational. Help me! Closer now, coming from somewhere below. He stood, joints protesting. The outpost floor had a massive fissure running through it, a jagged tear where the ice had split and swallowed half the structure. Blue light seeped up through the crack, not reflected light, but something emanating from deep below. He'd been avoiding that crack, avoiding the cold draft that rose from it, avoiding whatever might be down there. His rational mind screamed at him to stay put. Wait for rescue. Conserve energy. But rescue was 11 days overdue, and the voice was getting weaker. Callan grabbed a glow stick, cracked it, and dropped it into the fissure. It tumbled down, down, illuminating walls of blue ice before hitting bottom, maybe 40 feet below. The crack was wide enough to fit through, barely. Help me! He tied off his climbing rope to a support beam, tested it once, twice. The beam groaned, but held. He clipped in and lowered himself into the dark. The temperature dropped immediately. His breath turned to ice on his beard. The walls pressed close, jagged ice that could slice through his suit if he wasn't careful. He descended hand over hand, boots scraping for purchase, until his feet touched solid ground. The cavern opened around him. It was massive, cathedral-sized. The walls glowed with that strange blue luminescence. Not bright, but enough to see by. Ice formations hung from the ceiling like frozen tears. And at the center, suspended by chains that looked older than the outpost, older than human presence on this planet, was a woman. She hung limply, wrists bound by metal cuffs that bit into blue skin. Blue skin, not paint, not frostbite. Actually blue, the color of deep water under ice. Her hair was white, matted with frost. She wore leather and fur, primitive compared to his thermal suit, torn and stained with something dark. Her eyes were half open, unfocused. Miaru. He knew the name before he knew how he knew it. The wife of Voruk, chieftain of the ice tribes. The savages who'd been attacking human settlements for 2 years. The reason his outpost had doubled security. The reason half his squad had died before the collapse even happened. A sound behind him. Callan spun. A guard stood in the shadows. One of the tribe, wrapped in animal skins, gripping a spear with a blade made of sharpened bone. His face was painted with blue lines. His eyes were cold. Touch her, and your blood will freeze, the guard said in broken standard. Callan's hand moved to his weapon, a military-issue plasma pistol designed for close quarters. He drew it slowly. It already has, he said, and fired. The shot lit the cavern, electric blue. The guard's chest opened in a burst of steam and charred flesh. He dropped without a sound. Callan moved to the woman, Miaru. Her chains were ancient, but the mechanism was simple. He fired twice more, and the metal shattered. She collapsed into his arms, dead weight, barely breathing. "You're alive," he whispered, checking her pulse. Weak, thready, but there. Her eyes opened a fraction, looked at him, through him. "You heard them too," she whispered, her breath frost against his face. "Didn't you?" He didn't answer. Didn't have time. More voices were echoing down from above. Shouts in the tribal language, guttural and harsh. They'd heard the shots. Callan threw Miaru over his shoulder. She weighed less than she should, all bone and cold skin, and ran for the rope. He could hear them coming down, multiple climbers, moving faster than he could with her weight. He didn't go up. Instead, he ran deeper into the cavern, into passages that twisted away into darkness. Behind him, pursuit. Ahead of him, nothing but the unknown and the cold. He burst out onto the surface a quarter-mile from the outpost, through a fissure he hadn't known existed. The blizzard hit him like a physical blow. Wind so strong it drove ice crystals through his clothes. Visibility zero. The perfect cover. He trudged forward, one foot after another, Miaru's weight growing heavier with each step. His thermal suit screamed warnings, core temperature dropping, extremities at risk. He ignored them, ignored everything except the next step, and the next. After what felt like hours but was probably 15 minutes, he found shelter. A hollow in an ice formation, deep enough to escape the wind. He crawled inside, laid Miaru down as gently as his shaking hands allowed, and collapsed beside her. For a long time he just breathed, in and out, in and out. Proof he was still alive. Then she opened her eyes. The firelight flickered against walls of ancient ice, casting shadows that moved like living things. Callan had managed to start a fire using emergency fuel tabs from his kit. Small, controlled, barely warm, but it was something. He'd wrapped Miaru in his torn jacket and tied her wrist with paracord. Loose enough not to cut circulation, tight enough to matter. She watched him the entire time. Those eyes, pale blue, almost white, tracking his every movement. Not hostile, just assessing. "You kidnapped a chieftain's wife," she said finally. Her standard was better than the guard's. Accented but clear. "I kidnapped silence," Callan said, not looking at her. He was checking his gear. Plasma pistol down to 3 shots, 1 ration bar, water frozen solid in its container. His hands shook as he worked. "You'll die for it." "I was dying already." She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer. "Then why save me?" He looked up, met her eyes, didn't have an answer that made sense. "You asked for help. Many ask, few come. The others couldn't hear you." Something shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe, or suspicion. She sat up slowly, the jacket sliding down to reveal the leather bindings across her chest, torn and stained. Claw marks, he realized. Old ones. "You tied my hands," she said. "I don't know you. You saved me. I don't trust easily." She almost smiled. Almost. "Neither do I." Then after a beat, "Untie me. If you fear me, leave the knife beside me. Let me choose." Callan's jaw tightened. It was a test. Maybe a trap. Probably both. But something in the way she held herself, still, patient, not pleading, made him believe her. He reached forward with his knife. She didn't flinch. He cut the paracord in one smooth motion. Her hands fell free. She rubbed her wrists slowly, eyes never leaving his. Then she reached out, not for the knife, but for his hand. She took it gently, turned it over, examined the calluses, the frostbite starting at his fingertips. "We call your kind lone wolves," she said softly, "but wolves don't cry in their sleep." Callan pulled his hand back. "I wasn't." "You were. 3 times. You said a name. Rhea." The fire crackled. Outside, the wind's scream had faded to a low moan. "My daughter," he said finally. "She's gone." Miaru nodded slowly. Understanding passed between them, wordless and heavy. Loss recognized loss. "The chains," Callan said, desperate to change the subject. "Why were you there? Who?" "My husband," she said simply. "I displeased him." "By?" "Wanting to stop the killing." She looked at the fire. "Your people built on our land, took our hunting grounds. We fought back. Many died. I said there was another way. He disagreed. So he made me an example. He chained his own wife underground. He is chieftain. His word is law. No emotion in her voice, just fact. Callan felt something crack inside his chest. Not sympathy, something raw. Recognition. I disobeyed orders, he said. Refused to fire on civilians. They sent me to this frozen hell as punishment. She looked at him then. Really looked at him. And for the first time since he'd found her, she smiled. Small, sad, but real. We are both exiles then. Looks like it. The fire was dying. He had one more fuel tab. They could burn it now and freeze later, or save it and freeze now. Outside, the wind was picking up again. Come closer, Miaru said. If we're both going to freeze, at least freeze slower. He hesitated. She didn't move, just waited. Finally, he shifted closer. She pulled the jacket over both of them. Their shoulders touched. Her skin was cold, but her breath was warm. You don't have to, he said. Among my people, sharing warmth is a vow, she said quietly. Among mine, it's survival. She was silent for a moment. Then she reached up and touched his cheek with the back of her hand. A slow, deliberate motion. Ceremonial. You don't know what you just promised, she whispered. Before he could ask what she meant, her eyes closed. Not from sleep, from something else. Peace, maybe. Or trust. Callan looked down at her hand resting on his chest, rising and falling with his breath. He didn't understand what she meant, didn't understand the weight in her voice or the strange warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with fire. But he didn't move her hand, and slowly, finally, he let himself close his eyes. He woke to shouting. Callan's hand went for his weapon before his brain fully engaged. Miaru was already awake, pressed against the ice wall, peering out through a crack in their shelter. They found us, she whispered. Outside, lights moved in the blizzard, torches, bright and furious against the white. Voices called out in the tribal language, harsh commands. He could hear them getting closer, searching in a grid pattern. Let me go, Miaru said, turning to face him. Her expression was unreadable. I belong to them. You belong where you can breathe. They'll kill you. Then we run faster. Her eyes widened slightly. Surprise, maybe admiration. You're insane. So I've been told. Let's go. He grabbed her hand and pulled her out of the shelter. The blizzard hit them immediately, but at least it provided cover. They ran parallel to the search line, staying low, using ice formations for concealment. A shout behind them. They'd been spotted. Callan didn't look back. He just ran, pulling Miaru with him. She was fast, faster than he expected, her movements efficient and sure despite the terrain. She'd grown up on this ice. It was in her blood. They reached a ridge, steep but not impassable. Below, the ice field stretched out into darkness. Behind them, the lights were closing in. Down, Callan said. We slide. That's a 60-foot drop. You have a better idea? An arrow whistled past his ear. Not an arrow, a dart, crystalline and sharp, the kind the tribes made from compressed ice. It shattered against the rock behind him. No, Miaru said. No better idea. They jumped together. The slide was chaos, ice and snow and speed, everything a blur. Callan tried to control the descent, digging his heels in, but momentum had them. Beside him, Miaru moved like water, adapting to every shift in the terrain. The ridge ended in a cliff. They were going too fast to stop. Callan saw it a split second before they went over, a 40-foot drop to the ice field below. He reached for Miaru, managed to grab her hand. They went over the edge, still holding on. For a moment they were airborne, suspended in the blizzard with nothing but darkness below. Miaru's hand tightened in his. Her eyes met his, wide, frightened, alive. Then the impact. His hand slips from hers or hers from his, impossible to know which. The ice gave way with a sound like thunder. Then nothing. Absolute silence. A flash of white light behind Callan's eyes. Then darkness. Cold so intense it burned. Darkness. Cold so intense it burned. Pressure. The ice had swallowed them whole. Callan's lungs screamed for air. He kicked, but his thermal suit was dragging him down, waterlogged and heavy. Above him, the hole they'd made was already freezing over, a dim circle of light getting smaller. He was going to die here, in the dark, in the cold, just like everyone else. Then a shadow moved through the water. Miaru. She swam to him with powerful strokes, her lighter clothing giving her mobility. She grabbed his face with both hands and pressed her lips to his. Air. She was breathing air into his lungs. The world narrowed. No sound, no wind, no voices, just breath. Her breath becoming his breath. Each exhale catching the faint blue glow from the ice above, illuminating their faces in ghostly light. The faint beat of two hearts underwater, her eyes open, watching him in the blue darkness, her hands gentle on his face. Nothing else existed, just this moment, this exchange, life passing between them in the silent deep. She broke away, kicked toward the surface, grabbed his arm and pulled. He tried to help, kicking weakly. The light above was almost gone. Her hand found the ice, felt along it, searching, found a weak point. She drove her fist upward and the ice shattered. They broke the surface together, gasping. The world crashed back. Wind, cold, sound. Callan dragged himself onto solid ice, water streaming from his suit. Miaru hauled herself up beside him, breathing hard. For a moment they just lay there, alive. You saved me, Callan said finally, his voice raw. No, Miaru said, not looking at him. I didn't want to be alone. Those were my words. We share them now. She rolled onto her side to face him. Her white hair was plastered to her blue skin. Her eyes were bright with something fierce. I always wanted a human husband, she whispered. The words hung in the frozen air. The blizzard had stopped. The world was eerily quiet, as if listening. Callan stared at her. What? The warmth ritual. You accepted it. By your customs, maybe nothing. By mine. She touched his chest, right over his heart. You made a promise. I didn't know. Does it matter? Her voice was soft. Would you take it back? He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at this woman, this stranger, this enemy's wife, this exile who dived into freezing water to save him. This woman who trusted him with her life after he trusted her with his. No, he said finally. I wouldn't. She smiled then, small and sad and beautiful. Good, because among my people, promises made in the face of death are the only ones that matter. She leaned close, her forehead touching his. Her breath mixed with his in the space between them. Now we run, she whispered, or we fight. But we do it together. Callan nodded, pushed himself to his feet, helped her up. They were soaked, freezing, with no shelter and no supplies. Somewhere behind them, the tribe was still hunting, but they were together, and that somehow was enough. They walked for hours, maybe days. Time lost meaning when every moment was survival. Callan's suit was compromised, ice forming on the seams. His fingers had gone from numb to painful to numb again. Miaru stayed close, her hand occasionally brushing his, steadying him when he stumbled, guiding him when his vision blurred. She was in her element. This frozen wasteland was her home. She knew which ice was safe to cross, where to find frozen lichen that was barely edible, how to read the wind for signs of shelter. There, she said finally, pointing. A structure ahead. Not natural. Too regular. Too deliberate. As they got closer, Callan recognized it. An old mining station, abandoned years ago when the company realized this planet's resources weren't worth the cost of extraction. The door was frozen shut. Callan used his last plasma shot to melt the lock. It opened with a groan of protesting metal. Inside was dark, but it was shelter. Protection from the wind. Miaru found some old blankets, moth-eaten but dry. Callan managed to get a heater working, not well, but enough to take the edge off the cold. They sat close to the heater, wrapped in blankets, watching their breath slowly become less visible. Tell me about Rhea, Miaru said quietly. Callan's throat tightened. She was 6, bright, always asking questions. He paused. There was an attack on the colony. They said it was your people. My wife and daughter were in the market sector. There were no survivors. Miaru's hand found his, squeezed gently. I'm sorry. Your husband ordered many attacks. I don't know if that one was ours, but it could have been. She looked at the floor. I carry that. You tried to stop it. Trying isn't enough. They sat in silence. Two people who'd lost everything, huddled together in the dark. "Why did you save me?" Callan asked. "Really, under the ice? You could have swam to safety." Miaru was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I spent months in those chains in the dark, listening to voices that might have been real or might have been madness. I prayed to every spirit I knew for someone to hear me, for someone to come." She looked at him. "And you did. A human. An enemy. The last person who should have cared." She touched his face. "How could I let you die?" Callan turned into her touch. Her hand was cold but alive. Real. The first real thing he'd felt in longer than he could remember. "I don't know what happens next," he said. "Neither do I. Your people want me dead. Mine want you dead. I know. We can't go back. Either of us. I know." He looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman with blue skin and white hair and eyes that had seen too much. This woman who'd chosen him when she could have chosen safety. "Then we go forward," he said. She smiled. "Together?" "Together." She leaned in and kissed him, soft and careful and terrifying. Her lips were cold, but her breath was warm, and he realized he was crying, silent tears that froze on his cheeks. She pulled back slightly, wiping his tears with her thumb. "Wolves don't cry," she whispered. "Good thing I'm not a wolf anymore." "What are you then?" "Yours," he said. "If you'll have me." Her smile widened. "I already claimed you, remember? You're stuck with me now." They kissed again. Longer this time. Deeper. Two people finding warmth in a frozen world. Two exiles creating something new from the ashes of their old lives. Outside, the wind howled. But inside, for the first time in forever, Callan felt warm. They stayed in the mining station for 2 days. Resting, healing, planning. Miaru taught him words in her language. He taught her how to use his plasma pistol. Not that it mattered with no charges left. They shared his last ration bar, breaking it into careful pieces to make it last. On the third morning, they heard engines. Both of them froze. Miaru moved to the window, peered out carefully. "Transports," she said. "Your people or mine?" Callan looked. The vehicles were human, all-terrain crawlers, military grade. Probably a search and rescue team looking for survivors from his outpost. "Mine," he said. "Maybe. They'll take you back." "I'm not leaving you." "Callan, I'm not leaving you," he repeated, his voice firm. "We made promises, remember?" She looked at him. Something in her expression cracked. Vulnerability she'd been hiding. "They won't accept me." "Then they don't accept me either." "You'd give up everything." "I already did. When I chose you over the rope back in that cavern." The engines were getting closer. They had maybe 2 minutes. "What do we do?" Miaru asked. Callan thought fast. The mining station had old tunnels, maintenance shafts that went deep underground. He'd seen them when they were exploring for supplies. "We run," he said. "Again, until we find somewhere that doesn't care who we are." "Does such a place exist?" "We'll make one." She grabbed his hand. They ran for the back of the station as the transports pulled up front, down into the tunnels, into darkness, into the unknown. Behind them, voices called out, searching. But Callan didn't look back. He only looked forward, at Miaru, at the woman who'd become his world in the span of a few impossible days. They ran together into the dark. The tunnels went on forever. Miles of them, carved into the ice by machines long since scrapped. Callan and Miaru navigated by touch and by the faint glow of bioluminescent moss that grew on the walls. Some native organism that thrived in the deep cold. "Where do these lead?" Miaru asked, her voice echoing. "No idea. Away. That's enough." They walked for hours. The tunnel gradually sloped upward. Eventually, they saw light ahead. Natural light, filtering down through ice. They emerged on the far side of a mountain range, miles from where they'd started. The blizzard had cleared. The sky was a strange purple blue, and 3 moons hung visible even in daylight. "Beautiful," Miaru whispered. It was, alien and harsh, but beautiful. Then they saw the figures on the horizon, a line of them, silhouetted against the ice, carrying torches, moving with purpose. "Your people," Callan said. "No, look," Miaru pointed. The way they move, that's a hunting party, but the formation is wrong. They're not hunting. They're, she trailed off, eyes widening. They're creating a perimeter. For what? As if in answer, more figures appeared from the other direction. Human soldiers in formation, weapons raised. The two groups were converging. On them. They found us, Callan said. Both sides. This ends in blood. Not if we don't let it. He took her hand, started walking forward, toward the middle ground between the two groups. What are you doing? Miaru hissed. Something stupid. Come on. They walked out onto the ice field alone, exposed. Both groups saw them immediately, weapons raised on both sides. Miaru! A voice roared from the tribal side. Vorok, her husband, his voice carried across the ice like a physical blow. Come here, now! From the human side, a different voice. Sergeant Dorr, step away from the hostile. Callan and Miaru stopped in the exact center, equidistant from both sides. I'm not going back, Miaru called to her people. You're not a prisoner anymore, Vorok shouted. I came to bring you home. I am home, she squeezed Callan's hand. This is my home now. Silence. Shock rippled through the tribal line. You choose the human? Vorok's voice was dangerous. You choose our enemy? I choose peace, Miaru shouted. I choose a different way, the way I wanted from the start. Then you choose death, Vorok raised his arm. The warriors behind him readied their weapons. On the human side, the soldiers did the same. Stand down, Sergeant, the officer commanded. Final warning. Callan looked at Miaru. She looked back at him. They had seconds, maybe less. I'm with you, he said quietly, whatever comes. And I with you, she smiled, that small, sad, beautiful smile. Then she did something unexpected. She pulled him close and kissed him, long and deep, right there in the middle of no man's land, with two armies watching. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. Let them see, she whispered. Let them all see. Callan understood. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was a statement, a declaration. He kissed her back, harder, the kind of kiss that said more than words ever could. When they broke apart, the ice field was silent. Vorok stood frozen, his arms still raised. The human officer had lowered his weapon slightly, confusion on his face. You see? Miaru called out. This is what I choose. Not war, not vengeance. Just this. This is betrayal, Vorok snarled. No, Miaru said. This is the future. Callan stepped forward, his voice carrying. I won't fight you, either of you. I've seen enough death. If you want to kill me, I won't raise a weapon. But I won't leave her. Not ever. Same, Miaru said, stepping beside him. You want to kill him? You go through me first. They stood together, two people against two worlds. For a long moment, nobody moved. The wind died. Complete silence. Only the soft whisper of falling snow. Then slowly, the human officer lowered his weapon completely. This is above my pay grade, he muttered. He activated his comm. Command, this is Recon 7. You're not going to believe this, but I need authorization for... Hell, I don't even know what to call this. On the tribal side, an older warrior stepped forward, spoke to Vorok in their language, urgent and low. Vorok's face was twisted with rage, but slowly, very slowly, he lowered his arm. This is not over, he called to Miaru, but I will not spill your blood. Not today. He looked at Callan. You, human, you keep her alive. You keep her safe, or I will find you in whatever hell you hide in. It wasn't a blessing, but it wasn't a death sentence either. Callan nodded. I will. Vorok turned and walked away. His warriors followed, torches fading into the distance. The human officer shook his head. Dorr, you're the craziest son of a bitch I've ever met. Command says you're technically AWOL, but given the circumstances, he sighed. They're willing to call it a medical discharge, psychological trauma. You walk away now, we forget we saw you. And her? Callan asked. She's not our problem, not anymore. The officer looked at Miaru. But if you two show up near any human settlement, all bets are off. Understood? Understood, Callan said. The soldiers withdrew, their transports rumbling to life and disappearing over the ridge. Callan and Miaru stood alone on the ice field. The wind picked up, gentle this time. Not hostile, just present. What now? Miaru asked. Now! Callan looked around at the vast, empty, beautiful frozen world. Now we find our own way. Where? I don't know. Somewhere between your world and mine. He pulled her close. Somewhere new. She leaned into him. I like new. They started walking. Not toward the tribal lands. Not toward human territory. Toward the horizon, where the ice met the purple-blue sky. Together. Two exiles creating something impossible. Something beautiful. Something theirs. They found a place. 3 weeks of walking brought them to a valley sheltered by ice cliffs, where geothermal vents kept the temperature almost bearable, where moss grew thick enough to sustain small game, where ice formations created natural shelter. They built a home. Not much. A structure of salvaged metal and ice brick, heated by a small geothermal tap. But it was theirs. Miaru taught Callan how to hunt the snow rabbits that burrowed in the moss. He taught her how to maintain the few pieces of human tech they'd scavenged. They taught each other languages, customs, stories. At night, they lay together under blankets made from rabbit fur, watching the moons through a gap in the ceiling. Do you miss it? Miaru asked one night. Your old life? Sometimes, Callan admitted, but I wouldn't go back. Why not? Because I chose this. Chose you. Choice matters. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm pregnant. Callan's breath caught. What? 6 weeks, I think. Maybe 7. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. I wanted to be sure before I told you. His hand shook against her skin. A child. Our child. Human and tribe. Something new. They'll hate it. Both sides. Then they don't have to know. Not yet. She covered his hand with hers. We raise our child here. In peace. Away from all of it. And when they're older, then they choose. Like we did. Callan pulled her close, felt her heart beat against his chest, felt the future growing between them, fragile and precious and terrifying. I love you, he said, the first time he'd said it out loud. I know, she whispered. I heard it in every step you took, every time you chose me over safety. She kissed him softly. I love you too, my human, my husband, my home. They held each other as the moons crossed the sky and the wind sang outside their shelter. 2 exiles, 1 child, 1 impossible future. But they'd made impossible real before. They could do it again. Months passed. The child grew inside Miaru, visible now. She moved slower but smiled more. Callan hunted extra, storing meat for when she couldn't move easily. They prepared. Then one night they had a visitor. Callan woke to find someone standing in their doorway. He grabbed the spear he'd carved from bone. His plasma pistol was long dead. Easy, a voice said. Human. Familiar. The officer from the ice field stepped inside, hands raised. I come in peace. How did you find us? Callan demanded. Thermal satellite. We monitor for activity. The officer looked around the shelter, his eyes landing on Miaru and her swollen belly. Congratulations. What do you want? Miaru asked, her hand on a knife. To talk. That's all. The officer sat down uninvited. Things are changing. Both sides. The war is eating resources neither of us can afford. Some of us want to talk. Really talk. About peace. You think we care? Callan said. I think you're proof it's possible. A human and one of them. Living together. Not killing each other. The officer leaned forward. There are others like you. Not many, but some. Soldiers who deserted. Tribe members who fled. They're scattered, hiding. But if they could be brought together... You want us to be symbols, Miaru said flatly. I want you to be hope. The officer stood. Think about it. When your child is born, do you want them growing up in hiding? Or in a world where they don't have to hide? He left as quietly as he'd come. Callan and Miaru looked at each other. He's not wrong, Miaru said softly. He's asking us to risk everything. We already did, the day we chose each other. She took his hand. Maybe it's time to choose more than just us. Callan didn't answer, but he didn't let go of her hand either. The child was born on the coldest night of the year. Miaru labored for hours, Callan beside her, holding her hand, whispering encouragement. When the baby finally came, crying and perfect, Callan wept. The child had Miaru's blue skin, but lighter, almost lavender, human eyes, white hair like her mother's, tiny fingers that gripped his with impossible strength. A daughter, Miaru whispered, exhausted but radiant. What do we name her? Miaru looked at him with such tenderness it hurt. Rhea. We name her Rhea. Callan's throat closed. Miaru, your daughter lives on. In this one. In us. She placed the baby in his arms. Hope lives on. Callan looked down at his daughter, both of them somehow, and felt something break and rebuild inside him. All the pain, all the loss, all the impossible choices that had led him here. They'd carved a path through ice and blood and fear, and they'd made this. Life, future, hope. Rhea, he whispered to the baby, welcome to the world. The child looked at him with ancient, knowing eyes, then yawned and fell asleep. Outside, the wind had stopped. The night was perfectly still. 2 years passed. Rhea learned to walk on ice before she could speak full sentences. She was fearless, curious, constantly asking questions in a pidgin of tribal and standard languages. She had her mother's grace and her father's stubbornness, and she was not alone. Word had spread somehow, whispers through both communities, the human and the tribe woman, the child who was both and neither. Others came, slowly, carefully, a tribal hunter who'd fallen in love with a human medic, a soldier and a warrior's daughter, 3 families, then 5, then 10. They built a settlement in the valley, not human, not tribal, something new. They called it Threshold, a place between worlds. Both governments hated it, both ignored it. Neither wanted to acknowledge what it represented, but it grew anyway. Callan stood on a ridge overlooking Threshold one evening, Rhea on his shoulders, Miaru beside him. Below, lights glowed in the gathering dusk. Smoke rose from chimneys. Children played, human, tribal, and mixed, their laughter carrying on the wind. Did you ever imagine this? Miaru asked. No, Callan admitted. I imagined dying in that outpost, alone. Instead I'm here, with you, with her, with them. He gestured at the settlement. It's not perfect. No, but it's real. Rhea tugged on his hair. Papa, look, the moons. All 3 moons were visible, aligned in a rare conjunction. They cast triple shadows across the ice, turning everything silver and blue and gold. Beautiful, Miaru whispered. Yes, Callan said. But he wasn't looking at the moons. He was looking at her, at their daughter, at the impossible life they'd built from nothing but choice and will and love. A figure approached from the settlement, the human officer, now a regular liaison. Behind him, a tribal elder Callan recognized from negotiations. They'd been talking more. Both sides, slowly, carefully, but talking. They want to meet with you, the officer said. Both councils, official representatives. About what? Callan asked. A treaty, a real one. The elder spoke in the tribal tongue. Miaru translated. They want to use Threshold as neutral ground, for talks. Callan and Miaru exchanged looks. This could go very wrong, Callan said. Or very right, Miaru countered. They'll use us, make us symbols whether we want it or not. We already are symbols. We have been since that day on the ice field. She took his hand. But maybe being a symbol isn't the worst thing, if it means Rhea grows up in peace. Callan looked down at his daughter, still pointing excitedly at the moons. She was too young to understand what was being asked, too young to know the weight of what her existence meant. But someday she would, and he wanted her to grow up in a world where that weight was lighter, where being both wasn't a death sentence, where love didn't have to hide. All right, he said finally. Tell them we'll do it. The officer and elder both relaxed, relief visible on their faces. They spoke quietly about logistics, timelines, security arrangements. Miaru squeezed Callan's hand. Scared, she whispered. Terrified. Good, me too. But we do it anyway? We do it anyway. Rhea had lost interest in the moons and was now trying to braid her father's hair. Her tiny fingers tangled in the strands, pulling slightly. It hurt. Callan didn't move. Papa, Rhea said seriously, You need longer hair. Why's that? So I can make you pretty like Mama. Miaru laughed. Genuine, joyful, the sound carrying across the valley. Callan grinned. All right, little one. I'll grow it out, just for you. Promise? Promise. She sealed it with a kiss on his cheek, then squirmed to be let down. Miaru caught her, swinging her around as she giggled. The officer and elder finished their conversation and departed. The moons continued their slow arc across the sky. Callan watched his wife and daughter play in the triple moonlight, their shadows dancing on the ice. This moment, this exact moment, he wanted to freeze it forever, keep it safe, never let it change. But change was coming. Treaty talks, politics, the weight of two worlds looking to them for answers they didn't have. And yet, watching Miaru spin Rhea around, listening to their laughter echo off the ice cliffs, Callan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not just hope, certainty. They'd survived the impossible. They'd built the improbable. They'd made a life where none should exist. Whatever came next, they'd face it the same way they'd faced everything else. Together. The treaty talks began 3 months later. They set up in Threshold's central building, a structure built jointly by human engineers and tribal craftspeople, a perfect blend of both cultures. The councils arrived with guards, advisors, translators. Tension was thick enough to taste. Callan and Miaru stood at the front, not as negotiators but as proof. Living evidence that coexistence was possible. The first day was hostile. Old grievances aired, accusations thrown. Both sides threatened to walk out a dozen times. The second day was worse. On the third day, something shifted. A tribal warrior and a human soldier, both younger, both exhausted from translation duty, started talking during a break, sharing ration bars, comparing weapons, laughing at some shared joke about bureaucrats. Others noticed. The rigid lines softened, just slightly. By the end of the week, they had a framework. Not a full treaty, but bones of one. Territorial boundaries, trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, reparations. It wasn't perfect. It would take years to implement. There would be resistance on both sides, but it was real. On the final night, both councils shared a meal in Threshold. Human food and tribal dishes mixed together. Conversation was stilted but genuine. The guards had stopped glaring and started talking. Vorik was there. He'd come as part of the tribal delegation. He'd barely looked at Miaru all week, his face a mask. But as the meal wound down, he approached her. A word, he said in the tribal tongue. Callan tensed, but Miaru touched his arm. It's all right. They stepped outside. Callan watched through the window, ready to intervene. Vorik looked at Miaru for a long time. Then slowly he spoke. I was wrong, he said. The words seemed to cost him. You saw the path forward when I only saw blood. I chained you for wisdom. I am sorry. Miaru's eyes widened. Among the tribe, apologies from a chieftain were rarer than triple moon alignments. I accept your apology, she said carefully. Vorik nodded. Then he looked toward the window, where Callan watched. He makes you happy? Yes. The child. She is perfect. Good. Vorik turned to leave, then paused. You were always too wise for me, too kind. I needed a warrior wife. You needed, he gestured at Threshold, at everything. This. You found where you belonged. So did you, Miaru said gently. We all did. He left without another word, but his shoulders were lighter. Miaru came back inside. Callan pulled her close. What did he say? That I was right, she smiled, and that he was wrong, which might be the most shocking thing to happen all week. They stayed for the rest of the evening, watching two former enemies share drinks and stories. Watching Rhea play with other children, human, tribal, mixed, all of them too young to understand why this was remarkable. That was the point. The children wouldn't understand. To them, this would be normal. And that was everything. 5 years later, Threshold had become a city, a proper one, with permanent structures, a school, a marketplace where both currencies were accepted. The treaty was holding, though there were still incidents, still tensions, but they were managed through dialogue now, not blood. Callan and Miaru had stepped back from public life. They lived on the outskirts of the city, in an expanded version of their original shelter. Rhea was 7 now, fluent in 3 languages and absolutely fearless. She wanted to be an explorer. Like you and Mama, she said. You explored love. I want to explore everything else. They let her, with supervision and safety protocols, but they let her. One evening, as the family sat together watching the sunset, a rare sight on this planet, Rhea asked a question. Papa, Mama, tell me again, how you met. It had become a ritual, the story, their story. Callan looked at Miaru. She nodded. It started with chains, he began, and a voice in the dark. And a man who could have walked away but didn't, Miaru continued. They told it together, trading lines, filling in details. The cavern, the guard, the flight through the blizzard, the frozen lake, the kiss underwater, the moment on the ice field when they chose each other over everything. Rhea listened with rapt attention, even though she'd heard it 100 times. And then, she prompted at the end. And then we had you, Miaru said, pulling her close. And you were the best thing we ever made. Better than Threshold? Threshold exists because of love, Callan said. You are love, so yes, better. Rhea seemed satisfied with that. She snuggled between them, safe and warm. I'm glad you heard Mama's voice, she said sleepily. In the dark. I'm glad you went down. Me too, little one, Callan whispered. Me too. As Rhea drifted off to sleep, Callan and Miaru sat in comfortable silence. His hand found hers, their fingers interlaced, pale skin and blue, so familiar now he couldn't remember a time when this hadn't been his whole world. Do you ever think about it? Miaru asked quietly. That day in the cavern, what would have happened if you'd walked past? Every day, Callan admitted, but I didn't. I heard you, and everything changed. For better? He looked at their sleeping daughter, at their home, at the city visible in the distance, lights beginning to glow in the gathering dusk, at the life they'd built from nothing but impossible choices and stubborn love. For better, he confirmed. Miaru leaned her head on his shoulder. I love you, my human, my husband, my home. I love you, my heart, my wife, my everything. The sun finally set. The moons rose. The stars came out, thousands of them, in constellations neither human nor tribal astronomers had fully mapped. The winds sang through the valley, not howling, not screaming, just singing. And 2 people who'd saved each other in the dark sat together in the light they'd created, holding tight to the life they'd fought for, the love they'd chosen, and the future they'd made possible. For themselves, for their daughter, for everyone who would come after, who would never have to choose between worlds because 2 people had dared to create a new one. The ice planet turned on its axis, and on its frozen surface, hope burned bright. Beneath the ice, chains sank. Above it, 2 breaths became flame.